I think it's safe to say that within the setup here, we have some awesome professional workstations. Seriously? You're really going to do this right now? So even though the G5 and the Mac Pro are closer to the release of Windows 2000, I know that when I press the power button, it's going to load macOS, and it's just going to work like a real Macintosh. As for laptops, I have plenty of those as well. But the thing is, most of them are usually more consumer or business oriented, kind of like this Optiplex here. So I don't really have what you would call a more modern mobile workstation. That is, until now. I know, it's actually insane. For once, we're taking a look at something that is neither a Macintosh or a Dell computer. It's a Hewlett Packard. Now, I don't know much about the details on the system here. The only thing I know for sure is that it does power up, mainly because of this power supply, but the name on this system is actually hilarious. It's called an HP ZBook G3. Yeah, G3, like in Power Mac G3, iMac G3. Are we going to be able to run macOS 9 on this? Maybe through emulation, but natively, unfortunately not. It does, however, have Intel, so even though it's not like a G5 where it has PowerPC, it is closer to the Mac Pro because Intel. Out of every possible Windows machine, of course we're working on the one with the same name as a retro Mac. Cosmetically, it's actually in really good condition. This, however, is not helping at all. It really does need to be cleaned up because it's making it look worse than it really is, and not to mention, it's terrible to use it like this. The reason why the power supply is in better condition than the laptop itself is because I've already cleaned it up off camera. I wanted to make sure that it actually works because, well, you need it to work if you're going to make use of a laptop. It's not like you can just plug this into the wall like a standard PC. And it was also just as bad as the laptop itself. Now this is closer to how it should be, not with whatever this is. You can actually open up this system like a MacBook because you don't have to hold down the keyboard half. It just works. It looks pretty bad right now, but honestly once we clean it all up, it'll probably end up looking brand new again. We don't really have any wear and tear on the keycaps, the trackpad seems to be in good condition, and we even have a Core i7. Now that is awesome to see. The screen also needs a good clean, but it does work, and it also looks like we have a built-in sound system. If you weren't sure about what type of system you have, it literally says that it's a mobile workstation. We have some dust around the fan intake, some sticker residue to clean up, but otherwise, not too bad. After just one simple wipe down, you can see that it's already looking a lot better, and by the time we're done, it's going to be fantastic. We now have a brand new HP workstation. It was really easy to clean up the HP, and honestly, there's no comparison. Every single part of the laptop now looks amazing. Even this area which had all of that dirt and debris. And when we open this up, you can see that the keyboard itself is in fantastic shape. There's a small amount of wear and tear, but you really have to try and find it because the only real obvious thing I saw is on the shift key here. Everything else is in basically brand new shape, which is awesome to see. The trackpad doesn't even look like it's been used. We even have the option between a trackpad as well as a track point. Honestly, the more I look at this system, the more it reminds me of a MacBook. This right here is basically a MacBook hinge assembly, and not only that, we also have built-in Touch ID. We also have a literal night and day difference with the display, because now you can actually see what's going on. With the webcam cover, I'll probably end up removing it later, But generally, if you see this on a display, especially on something like a MacBook which has a glass panel, you want to remove it as soon as possible because you might actually end up breaking the display. Before we test out the HP, we're going to remove the back panel to make sure we have a hard drive, RAM, and also clean up any extra dirt and debris that might be within the fans. It seems like it's pretty easy to remove the back panel. We just have a couple of screws, but these are not Phillips, they are Torx, so we're going to have to make use of our iFixit toolkit with the proper adapter. The back panel actually has a really nice feature. All the screws are held into place. And just like that, we have complete access to the entire system. So we do have a battery, we have RAM, but we don't have any storage. So we gotta fix this. Now, I don't know much about the hardware configuration apart from the fact that we of course have an i7 based on the sticker, but I took a closer look at the RAM. And this one appears to be an 8GB stick. So if this one is matching, that means we have 16GB inside the system. Having 16GB of upgradable RAM with an i7 inside a laptop is already awesome to see. But then I see this. You can just barely see NVIDIA. Yeah, that's the GPU. And it's upgradable! It's also really cool to see that we do have the battery, and what's even better is that it's not a spicy pillow. Now, whether or not it'll actually charge, I guess we just have to wait and see. It's also insane to see that within this system, we have a spot for a SATA drive, as well as not one, but 2 NVMe drives. Now this right here is basically brand new technology for me. I don't have any spare NVMe drives, but I do have some spare SATA drives that we could use for this. So to make the HP usable again, we're going to install a very nice and fast 500GB hard drive. Yeah, maybe if I was going to use Windows XP. I've also had some issues with that hard drive in the past, so at best, it's unreliable. Now, even though I use hard drives on a regular basis, even I know that with a system like this, it's just going to be a bottleneck. So in this case, hey smokers, we have an SSD. Here we have a Samsung SSD, and we're going to be installing the SSD into the SSD, and to use SSD technology with the SSD. Now, I know that it's only 128GB in size, but just to get this up and running at least, it's going to be more than enough. Before we install the new drive, while we have the system opened up like this, I'll clean up the internals as much as I can, but honestly, this was probably the cleanest part of the system. Now, there is still some dust here, but it's mainly just on the back panel. No way. This thing can accept a SIM card. We also have a spot for an extra Wi-Fi card, and this thing can actually take up to 4 sticks of RAM. We also have DDR4 RAM clocked in at 2133 MHz. Now, it's possible that there's supposed to be a bracket or some kind of hard drive caddy, but we don't have one. So we're just going to take the SSD and professionally install it here. Just like that. Now this right here is one professional install. The charger is actually really awesome. This can provide up to 150 watts of power. This can output 19.5 volts at 7.7 amps. This honestly is a mobile workstation considering how much you can upgrade it. We have an SSD installed, there's still a lot of room for expansion, but what do we have in terms of the I/O? Now we don't have an optical drive, but that's kind of to be expected considering it's a newer system. On the left side, we have a Kensington lock, Ethernet, VGA, which is awesome to see, USB, and this appears to be at least USB 3 compatible because we have the extra pins, as well as an SD card reader. This also has one of those SD card covers to make sure that no dust actually goes within the slot, and to also provide a nice clean finish. On the right side here, we have a combination headphone microphone jack, 2 more USB ports, HDMI, Thunderbolt, and of course, power input. Now with a system like this, it makes sense to have USB 3, but I was not expecting Thunderbolt, let alone 2 of them. I guess in some ways, this really is similar to a MacBook. As we power up the HP, we can do the official Action Retro BIOS trick, because I don't know which function key opens up the BIOS menu. This is actually kind of like the Dell machines that I use because we have a real graphical user interface. And we even have a mouse. So I guess we can go into system information. So it is indeed an HP ZBook 15G3, but instead of that G3 processor, we have an Intel Core i7 6700HQ clocked in at 2.6 GHz. From what I can tell, this is actually a pretty decent CPU, and this is the Intel Skylake generation. This is actually my first system with a newer Intel chip. Previously, I think the only newest Intel system that I have is the Dell Optiplex with the 4th generation i5 Haswell. Now, because we just installed a fresh SSD for this machine, we don't have any sort of operating system. So to fix that, we have Windows 10 on this flash drive. So if we go into the boot menu, we may need to restart the system. And yeah, it seems like we're going to have to do that because the flash drive is not here. So it said that F9 would go directly into the boot menu. Now that's a good sign. It actually shows up here. We can load up into the installer, and there it is, Windows 10. Now the real bottleneck for this system is the flash drive because it's obviously only USB 2. So at this point we can just click on Next, Install Now. And even though this is newer Windows, it's still really interesting to see it on a more modern system like this. So we will just click on Next. I guess we'll go ahead and go into the custom section here. So yeah, this is a fresh drive. We don't have anything on it. And that's it. I guess now we just wait. So the system itself has restarted, and as you can see, it's getting ready. So far this has been a very fast install because now we're in the setup. The track point is also working. Now the Wi-Fi chip does seem to work, but we're going to skip the internet connection for now because I don't want to deal with this nonsense. So we will just continue with the limited setup. So we're going to call this HP ZBook G3. Ah yes, the settings that everyone wants to have, right? So we're going to fix this by doing all of this right here. And just like that, then we can continue. Not now. Now we just have to wait for it to finish up, and we're going to have Windows. Now whether or not that's a good thing, I don't know, but at least we're still going to be able to use the system. Even with just a standard USB 2 flash drive, the installation itself was very fast, and as you can see, we now have a desktop. I forgot just how bad a fresh copy of Windows like this is because on my Optiplex, I cleaned it up and got rid of all the extra nonsense. And I'm sure it's going to take a while for it to actually load all the updates because this is not a completely up-to-date version of the installer. Yeah, you can see that we have a variety of different HP drivers. Ever since we got this up to date, I've actually been using it for a couple of days now just to see how well it works. And honestly, it's hard to believe that this is now considered an older system. Now, I'm sure you could also run Windows 11 on this, but I barely use Windows 10. I really don't need Windows 11. I'd rather use macOS Lion instead of modern Windows. So we knew about the 6700 HQ, we knew about the 16 gigabytes of RAM, but using DXDiag here, I was able to figure out that we actually have an NVIDIA Quadro M1000M. Now from what I can tell, this is not the lowest end GPU, but it's also not the highest end either. It's still pretty decent because it does have 2 gigabytes of VRAM. Not bad for a system like this, but obviously it's intended to be a workstation, not exactly a gaming machine. Now, I'm sure if you have applications which can more effectively make use of that Quadro GPU, it would run fantastic. If I can use a Core 2 Duo and still open up modern Firefox without a problem, this is basically overkill. Now, in terms of games, it'll play a lot of lighter titles, it'll play older titles. It's not exactly the best option for up-to-date software anymore in terms of newer, more intensive games, but overall, it's still a very solid system. I personally have no complaints with the performance. I mean, if I'm able to use Macintosh systems from the 2000s without a problem, then this is basically brand new for me. The biggest thing that I realized while using this, and it's not just about the HP itself, is that I don't really have any system set up as a Windows server. It's exactly why I set up a Hackintosh server. So if I have a Mac on the network, all I have to do is connect up to my Optiplex Hackintosh, access any application or other file that I might need, and I don't have to download it directly from the website. It's all saved on one system, but of course that's just for macOS. It is very helpful though when you're working on multiple systems and multiple copies of macOS, but I don't have anything like that for Windows. Sure, I might have some applications and some files on one system, but it's nothing that I could really call a server. At this point, we were just going to end off the video by mentioning how in the future it could be interesting to Hackintosh this, but the thing is, we are now in the future and I have some updates as to how I want to use this machine. After the Windows 10 install, I actually spent an entire day with OpenCore to see if I could make a Hackintosh installer for this machine, and while I believe I got it properly configured, I don't know if it works at all because I was never able to load into the installer. The main reason why is because Secure Boot is enabled by default, and you might be thinking, why not just turn it off? Well, I tried to do that, but then when the system restarted, it was enabled again. So I found out that alongside the main system battery, the CMOS battery also doesn't hold a charge. So yeah, I do have to use this plugged in, which kind of defeats the purpose of a laptop, but it's not like this is my main laptop, so it's not that big of a deal. I'm just more focused on the fact that it works in the first place. Now, I'm sure there's multiple ways to get around this, one of which is to obviously change out the batteries, but honestly, I just don't care enough to do that right now because I guess it would be cool to have this as a Hackintosh, but it's also a really good Windows 10 machine. And because I never got this to load into the installer, I tried using this more with Windows 10, and I can tell you that it's actually really convenient to have both a laptop and a desktop with the same version of Windows. So the HP is just going to be really nice to have alongside the Optiplex. Now obviously this has its own advantages because it's a full-size PC tower, so we can test out PCI expansion cards, full-size hard drives, basically anything like that. But with this being a mobile workstation and the fact that we can actually upgrade it, we can easily test out RAM sticks, NVMe drives, SATA drives, and other laptop-related accessories. And of course, this also does have Thunderbolt, so we can test out Thunderbolt accessories on Windows. Plus, it's also just, easy to set up because it's a laptop. So the Hackintosh not working out was actually a good thing because now we have both a laptop and a desktop, and additionally the desktop is actually on Windows 10 Home, meanwhile this is on Windows 10 Professional. And in the future I'm going to do the same thing with Windows 8, Windows 7, Windows Vista, basically have a laptop version and a desktop version. Now the software that we're going to end up using on these systems is probably going to be a whole other topic because like I was talking about earlier, it would be nice to have some kind of Windows machine to act as a server, kind of like with the Hackintosh and the Mac side of things. Even though it took a while to finish up this project, I'm just happy that we got this up and running and it's actually usable. If you enjoyed today's video, then consider leaving a thumbs up, and if you want to see even more awesome content about Windows, Macintoshes, and Dell computers, then consider subscribing. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.